I never imagined that walking away from Islam could nearly cost me everything, even my life. My name is Fatima Hassan, and this is my journey. The moment they discovered I had renounced Islam, everything shifted. I was no longer seen as their daughter, sister, or friend. To them, I was a disgrace. They believed I deserved death. I can still recall the flames and the agony. The stench of my burning flesh is forever etched in my mind. I thought that would be my end, but it wasn't. In that instant, as my body was being ravaged, I departed this world and encountered something I never expected. I saw Jesus. I sensed his presence, his boundless love, and his words transformed everything. This is my testimony. This is the story of how I died and came back, irrevocably changed. I was born into a deeply devout Muslim family. From the moment I could form a word, I learned how to pray, recite the Quran, and obey without question. In our home, Islam wasn't merely a faith. It defined our identity and way of life. Questioning was inconceivable. For years, I meticulously followed every rule. I fasted during Ramadan. I veiled myself exactly as instructed. I did everything to embody the perfect Muslim woman. Yet, deep inside, turmoil brewed. I wrestled with doubts and questions that only pushed me further from the closeness to God I craved. But I kept those thoughts hidden. Doubt was perilous. Asking the forbidden questions risked punishment, disgrace, or even worse outcomes. So, I said nothing. Then everything began to shift. I started hearing accounts about Jesus, stories I'd never been exposed to before. I had always been told he was merely a prophet, nothing more. But when I secretly read about him, something stirred deep within. Why did his words resonate so differently? Why did his message feel so intimately personal? I couldn't ignore the magnetic pull toward him. I began seeking answers, reading and watching accounts of others who had encountered Jesus. And then the dreams came. In my dreams, I saw a luminous figure in white, calm, radiant, and silently reassuring. Though he never spoke, I felt his love and presence. At the time, I didn't fully grasp it, but something inside me recognized him. The more I discovered, the more restless I became. If Islam held all the answers, why did I feel so adrift and empty? I knew I could no longer suppress these feelings. The fateful moment arrived when I made the scariest decision of my life. I decided to leave Islam behind, but abandoning it wasn't just a shift in beliefs, it meant forfeiting everything. I was prepared to lose my family, community, and safety. I hid my new conviction for as long as I could, yet secrets never remain hidden forever. I kept my truth secret as long as possible. I prayed in solitude, read the Bible in shadowed corners, and murmured my doubts quietly. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One day, my family discovered the truth. Suspicion had first arisen. Why was I no longer praying? Why did I seem so changed? And then they found my Bible. The instant they saw it, chaos erupted in our home. My father's face contorted in anger. My mother broke down in tears. And my brothers, they looked at me as if I were a traitor. I tried to explain, but they wouldn't hear me out. To them, I had brought dishonor to our family, to our name, to everything they held sacred. In a heartbeat, their love transformed into hatred. Those who had once nurtured and protected me had become the very people I feared the most. Initially, there were only threats. They demanded I repent and return to Islam or face dire consequences. But I couldn't. I had witnessed the truth. I knew Jesus was real. No amount of pleading could soften their hearts. They were already stone. Then the threats escalated into something far graver. One night, they cornered me. My cries fell on deaf ears. Their resolve was unyielding. I remember the first brutal blow, which sent me sprawling to the ground. Then strong hands seized me, dragging me outside. The night air was frigid, yet their fury burned hotter than any fire I had known. I saw the container of gasoline before I caught its stench. The liquid soaked into my clothes, seeping over my skin. I screamed and struggled, but they held me down relentlessly. A match was struck, and then came the blaze. Words cannot capture the searing agony. My body turned into an inferno. Flames raced along my arms, legs, and face. My screams pierced the night, yet no one came to help. No one intervened. I eventually collapsed. The world around me blurred. My vision dimmed. I felt life slipping away as the pain faded into numbness. I believed that was the end. But then, something extraordinary occurred. The pain vanished. The sounds around me grew distant. I was no longer tethered to the ground or my body. I found myself somewhere beyond this existence. And then I saw him. As the flames devoured me, everything else dissolved. Pain, screams, the entire world. It all evaporated. I felt as if I were lifted, detached from my physical form. And then I beheld it. There on the ground lay my charred, lifeless body. My family gathered around, some frozen in shock, others averting their eyes. I should have felt agony, yet I felt nothing. Instead, I watched in detachment, as if I were witnessing someone else's torment. Then, everything shifted. The surroundings faded into darkness. I was engulfed in a deep, stifling void. It was colder than anything I had ever experienced, not just in body, but in spirit. I was completely alone. And then whispers began, voices from every direction. Harsh, taunting accusations filled the void. You betrayed the truth. You abandoned the right path. You deserve this fate. Their words weighed on me and fear gripped me like chains. Was this hell? Had I chosen wrongly? I longed to scream, to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The darkness seemed endless. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, a light appeared. At first, it was a distant, faint glow, piercing the blackness. But it grew steadily brighter, warmer. Suddenly, I was not alone. I heard my name, a voice, firm yet gentle, calling out, Fatima. And then I saw him. Jesus stood before me, surrounded by a radiance so pure and brilliant, I couldn't tear my eyes away. It wasn't merely light, it was love. A love so profound and all-encompassing that for the first time I felt complete. I sank to my knees, speechless and immobilized, overcome with tears. He reached out, his eyes brimming with compassion. You are loved. Your time is not yet. In that instant, the fear, guilt, and isolation melted away. I experienced a peace I had never known. Then, a vision unfolded before me, a glimpse of a realm beyond this life, a place filled with joy, love, and unending worship. A realm devoid of pain and fear, offering pure, eternal peace. I realized, without a doubt, that I was witnessing heaven. And in that moment, clarity washed over me. I had been searching for him all my life, through doubt, fear, and rejection. He had been calling me all along. He never abandoned me. He implored me, return and share what you have seen. Share his message with them. I didn't want to leave that luminous embrace, that divine presence. Yet, before I could speak further, I felt myself being drawn back to this world, back into my battered body. And then, with a sharp gasp, I awoke. My first breath was like emerging from a deep, dark pool. I choked on air as my lungs burned. I heard voices, shouts and cries, but they felt distant. The searing pain rushed back into my body. Yet something had changed inside me. I had been in the presence of Jesus, I knew with certainty. When my family saw me alive, their expressions turned to shock and terror. I was expected to be dead. The doctors had declared there was no hope for me. My burns were catastrophic, and medically, there was no explanation for my return. And yet, I lived. They rushed me to the hospital where the medical staff stared at me as if I were a ghost. "She shouldn't be alive," one whispered. They warned that even if I survived, I would endure excruciating pain for the rest of my days. But something miraculous occurred. I began healing at an astonishing rate. Scars that should have taken years to fade vanished before our eyes. The doctors were baffled. The nurses called it a miracle. But I knew the truth. I had been touched by Jesus. He rescued me for a purpose. Once I was able to speak, I recounted everything, the darkness, the voices, the terror, followed by the radiant light and the love I experienced when I saw Jesus. Not everyone believed me. Some dismissed it as a hallucination, others refused to listen. My family grew colder, realizing I hadn't reverted. Instead, I had only grown stronger in my newfound faith. Yet no doubt could shake what I knew. Jesus was real. He saved me, not merely from death but from eternal despair. I felt compelled to share what I had witnessed, even if it meant standing alone. Even if I faced rejection, I could no longer remain silent. As I healed, I realized I was no longer the frightened person I once was. The questions that had tormented me for so long had vanished. I no longer needed to search. I had discovered the truth. Or rather, he had discovered me. Slowly, my story spread. People began to listen. Some came quietly, sharing their own doubts and inquiring about the Jesus I had encountered. Others, who felt lost, just as I once did, began seeking him out. I was no longer afraid of death, rejection, or what the future might hold, because I had met the Savior, and nothing would ever be the same. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. For countless years I lived in fear of asking the forbidden questions, fear of losing my family, fear of the unknown that awaited if I strayed from all I'd ever known. But when I finally cast aside that fear and earnestly sought the truth, Jesus approached me, not with wrath or condemnation, but with love, with open arms, claiming me as his own. If you're searching, if there's an emptiness in your heart, I urge you not to ignore it. That yearning, that restlessness isn't without purpose. It's Jesus calling you just as he called me. He is real. His love is genuine. I understand what it's like to fear the truth, to wonder if following it might cost you everything. But believe me when I say it's worth it. Regardless of your past or your mistakes, Jesus offers a fresh start. He grants love, redemption, and a peace that nothing else in this world can provide. If you've ever questioned what lies beyond this life, know that there is proof of something more. There is a God who loves you, who sees you, and who wants to envelop you in his light. If you're unsure or searching, simply ask. Ask God to reveal himself to you. I promise you, he will, just as he did for me. This is my story, but it doesn't have to remain solely mine. It can be yours too. My journey isn't merely about pain and suffering. It's about redemption, about the overwhelming love of Jesus. I was lost, but he found me. I was near death, yet he granted me new life. I paid the ultimate price for leaving Islam. I was betrayed, abandoned, and set aflame. Yet in my final moments, I met the one who is truly alive, Jesus. He rescued me, healed me, and gave me a renewed purpose. Now I live to share his love with the world, and I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Do you believe in near-death experiences? Have you ever felt something divine in your life? Share your reflections in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. If this testimony has touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more moving stories of faith and transformation. And if you're still searching for the truth, remember, Jesus is waiting for you. His arms are wide open. The truth is out there. Are you ready to discover it?